All right, we are back at All Eyes on Me podcast. I'm Divinity Ray, your host, and today I am so excited to have you because I'm obsessed with you.
I'm so excited to be here.
Dave Yaden in the house.
Hello to everyone out there.
How did we meet?
But Black Rabbit, right?
Yeah. Black Rabbit is where you perform jazz.
Yeah, that's I have a residency there every week in Los Angeles. It's been voted the best small music venue in Los Angeles by a bunch of different magazines and stuff like that.
Cool.
And for as long as I've been in LA and played the small spots, it's my favorite small spot I've ever played, which is why my residency's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's dope.
So what do you mean by you have a residency? You perform every week?
That's what
night?
it means. Yeah, residency is same time, same day. So for me, it's 10:30 p.m. on a Monday night.
I love that.
Yeah.
What a song in itself.
Well, that's my single actually that I just released this year.
Really?
Yeah, it's called Monday Nights.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Wait, this is already so epic. Oh my god.
Oh my god, we totally didn't even plan this.
Well, it's like we scripted it or something.
No, that it is. Yeah, that's why I called it Monday Nights, because I wrote it for the night, and but then it ended up being, thankfully, a tune that people really liked. So I'm also terrible at naming songs. My songs are all named for either usually the place I wrote them in, never having anything to do with the song ever. I hate naming songs.
Yeah, I don't blame you. You should just do no name number 1, no name number 2. Just continue.
I do.
You do that.
But the problem is that you can't tell the band what song to play.
That's so funny.
Yeah. The way that I do it, it's also because I'm constantly writing, I have to just play a piece of it. I have to go, we're going to do this one.
How did you get into music?
Well, there's a piano in my house when I grew up, and I remember my mom playing it. So for me, the piano was it was just piano in the living room, little upright piano, but it was just always I don't know. I always liked how it sounded. It was a toy to me, It was and I mean, I think that's not uncommon to anyone, that tones that come out of an instrument. And a piano's easy to play. It's not like a guitar, actually. Guitar is it's got less strings and things, but you have to develop technique and squeezing and all that. A piano, a baby can go up and go, bing, and the note is perfect.
Yeah.
Because that's just by virtue of what the instrument is, that the mechanics on the inside of the instrument are making the note. As long as you can push the key down. You don't have to tune it. You hire somebody else to tune it.
Yeah. Were you an only child?
No, I have a brother who's my best friend in the world. He's about just under 2 years younger than I am.
Does he do music too?
He does not. He was never into it. He's a brilliant artist and he's an author. Yeah. What
kind of books does he write?
Fantasy, kind of the Dune series, or C.S. Lewis, kind of J.R.R. Tolkien.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
What an epic family you have. Are you guys close?
Oh yeah.
He's your bestie?
Oh yeah. He's the person in the world that if he was gone, it would
all be over.
It would just change everything forever.
Wow.
But
wow.
Which I don't often feel that way about.
What a fantastical childhood you had.
I was very lucky. My parents were kind and nice people, and my parents divorced when I was 14, and divorce is always shitty for everybody, but they didn't ever fight in front of us, and I'm an artist where I'm not one of those people that are like, they wouldn't let me study or do music or anything. They are always like, yeah, go do it.
Yeah.
They would let me well, I mean, technically, you're not, until you're, 15? You can't work legally. But I wanted to go play music. So they would take me to, hotels where there was a big grand piano and be like, just go.
Wow.
And hang out for an hour or two and let me play. And got me gigs at restaurants where with their, friend zone, where they could pay me cash under the table and go play for 2 or 3 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. But so
cool.
they always encouraged me to do it. And then when I said that I wanted to study in college, which studying art in college is...
Don't study art in college, kids. Yeah. It's a waste of your time.
Yeah.
Take it from really someone who knows.
Yeah. Well, I don't even want to go into that. But even then, because my dad is a college professor.
Yeah.
So he works in college, but he is a reading professor, a professor of literature and reading. So for him, a degree is useful. Mm-hmm. But even when I wanted to study music, they were like, yeah, there's a, whatever. Basically, I'm lucky too. They're like, well, Dave is going to do what he's going to do anyway. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's how I was too with my parents. My parents definitely promoted me going into dance and all the art forms that I, was good at. I mean, I feel like you're probably similar to me because you're just an artist, and I can't wait to hear your full story because I know that you're so much more than just a piano player.
Yeah.
Which that's enough, because the piano that you play is something I have never heard. I have never in my life. You guys, if you're ever in LA and you are free on a Monday night, go to the Black Rabbit. Because seriously, like, you started playing the night that Naz took me to your show, and I was blown away. I was like, who the fuck is this guy? If I'm not starting a podcast for anyone, I'm starting a podcast for Dave Yaden.
Thank you.
Seriously.
Thank you.
Like, you are the epitome of this podcast. And, it's funny because, like, as a fellow artist, I grew up with two artists who were very feral, very wild. My parents could not be tamed. I swear to God, like, in this stage of my life, I look at them as teenagers. And it's so funny because, like, I always thought that my childhood was such an adventure because, if we didn't have anything, we at least had the art. And so I think, as an artist, it's like you do get wrapped up in the fantasy.
Sure.
And you don't really at times notice the trauma or the shit that's happening around you, because as long as you have that one art form that you can kind of escape to,
sure, it's
all good.
Well, yeah, I mean, ideally, I think it's a way to work out our feelings too.
Yeah.
It's it doesn't even have to be an escape. It's a way to work it out.
Yeah.
The way that I look at it is it's language. 100%. I mean, we use literary terms in language. We say things like this is a musical phrase, or you talk about someone's phrasing when they solo, or you talk about a soloist's vocabulary. That we use literary phrases in music.
Yeah.
And you read music.
Yeah.
You use the word read.
Wow. That's such a cool way to look at it. I've actually never heard somebody describe it as that.
Yeah, it's language, and I'm actually putting together a masterclass about it. That's called speaking music.
Wow.
So the point is, though, is you can go into, well, any art, but you can go into music.
Yeah.
And what it is a visceral tonal expression of thought. That's what speech is. Speech is an expression of thought. We define ourselves by speech, and completely. That's why it's difficult to be around a child that's very young, that can't talk yet. Initially, you think, it's because I can't communicate, but when you're around a small child that can say words, but you realize, like, you're saying lots of things, and it's not. You watch it not compute, and the reason it's not computing. It's not just that they don't have that definition, is that they don't know what the word definition is. They have not, like, we define existence and consciousness with what we're doing right now.
Wow.
Words.
Wow.
Without words, we would be something else. Right. So to go back to music, that is a visceral tonal expression of thought. And when I teach kids music, we don't sit down with paper and notes.
Yeah.
Because it's not how you learn.
How do you teach? I mean, how do you...
I teach it the same way that, so here's something interesting, is that, like, music is taught as poorly as language is, right?
Yeah.
Everybody went to high school, and everybody took Spanish or French or something.
I failed Spanish in high school.
And you failed it. Right.
Completely.
Right.
Like, after miserably. Like, I almost didn't graduate high school because I failed it.
But think about this. After 4 years... you failed it. Do you know why? Because it's not taught the way that you were taught the language that you're speaking right now. The way that you were taught that's the same way that I learned, and the same way that I taught my son, which is a very fascinating process, which is you just have a kid and you just have this little thing. You have this little gremlin running around, and you talk to it until it starts talking back.
Wow.
That's how we all learn language. That's how you learn to speak.
Wow.
You learn by someone just speaking to you and looking at you, and so you begin to, the first thing that you understand is tone. Before you understand words, That's the first thing that you understand. I remember, I can't remember how old Wolfgang was, but he had bumped his head. He was very young. He was like 2 or 3, very, very young. And so he was starting to answer questions, but I was very aware that he didn't really know what the fuck we were saying. But, you know, things like food, whatever. Mm-hmm. But the point is that my wife picked him up, and she said, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Did you hit your head?" Because we saw him hit his head. And he's like, "Mm-hmm." She goes, "Well, did you hit anything else? Did you hit your hand?" And he's holding his little hands. He's like, "Mm-hmm. You did? Well, does anything else hurt? Does your knee hurt?" Uh-huh. And I walk and I would go, "Reese, you know, he doesn't understand a goddamn thing you're saying. Do you know that?"
Yeah, he's just agreeing.
She was offended on the part of our child, like I was calling our child stupid. She was like, "He understands." And I was like, "Wolfgang, did you see a giraffe
your kid's
today?"
name is Wolfgang, by the way. We got to talk about the name.
Oh, it's simple. Well, here, so the point is, I go, "Wolfgang, did you see a giraffe today?" And he goes, "Mm-hmm. Yeah." I said, "Did you kill it and eat it?" Mm-hmm. And Risa was like, "What the fuck?" But the point is that he was at this point in learning language where what he was hearing was, that's what he was hearing, and he understood what that meant to a degree.
Right.
He understood that the guiding care was going. Was loving and reaching out, and he understood the reciprocating tone was, you know, and that so say that, and to bring us back to music, and that music is a language, and completely it is, and the reason that most of us don't speak. The reason that most of us don't speak Spanish and French and the things that we took in high school is the same reason we don't speak music, is they're both taught very poorly. Because what happens is that whether it's Spanish or whether it's music, if you take a lesson, they set down words in front of you. If it's in front of a piano, they set down sheet music and they start to immediately tell you. And if it's a language, they set down the thing and you go, "Here are the words." And it's like, you know what? This is very interesting because this is not how any of us learned to talk. So now why are we taking a completely different approach?
So true.
So that's why people can't also play music, even though they take lessons. People are like, "Oh, I took flute, I took piano, I took this, and I can't do it. And I can't do it, and I can't do it, and I can't read music, and I can't do any of that." And it's because it's taught the same way from this like odd academic place. And then meanwhile, so this is why also you get most professional musicians say what? "I can't read music." And everyone's like, "Oh, that's possible. You read music and you do this professionally?" And it's like, "Oh, no. Well," and so the reason is that it's just the same thing with your art. If you have the passion and proclivity for it, you're going to learn to do it.
Yeah.
And so
I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah,
eventually I'm going to figure it out.
And that's what's beautiful is everyone figures it out to do it in that special way that makes them them.
Yeah.
Right? That's what makes your art so special.
Yeah.
Is that it's yours. And like if you are not making it, that's not going to be made. It's just not going to be made.
Right.
Like something else might be made, but if you don't do it, it's not going to be the same.
Do you have this theory that all people could do music if they were taught correctly?
Yes.
Wow.
Here, let me.
This is totally mind blowing to me because I'm literally like, my whole life I was taught that we have the logic humans and we've got the artists.
Yes.
And we've always differentiated people in that way.
Let me tell you.
We've got finance.
Let me tell you.
And then we've got piano players.
I love this. I love this so much. This is another one of my favorite things to talk about in terms of of language.
Yeah.
Okay? So here's the deal. If I'm right, and that music is a language. If I'm right, okay? So one of the things that people are fascinated by is when somebody, this is why people like to come hear me play, because it's a massive amount of improvisation. I sit down and I talk for an hour, right?
You don't really script your shit, do you?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so, because when we were there, I was like, oh my God, this guy is literally, I felt like you were just like, it was like you were an oracle or something. Like just, you had just this way with the crowd. And I'm like, this guy could literally say anything, and people will listen.
Yeah,
you've got an affinity. But it's real. It's very raw, and it's very relatable. It
has to be real, yeah.
That's why. It's because it's so. It doesn't feel like you are on stage. It feels like you're at eye level and you're just hanging out with everyone.
Right. Well, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the point is so I go up there, and when I say speak for an hour and a half, I do talk, but what I meant speak is I meant music. I speak music for an hour. I improvise, right?
Right.
And that's what a jazz musician does. That's what any soloist does. When they take their solo, they are improvising in that moment. And a lot of times people look and go, what do you mean you're making that up off the top of your head? How is that possible?
Yeah.
Right? And so I love that question, because I'm like, you're doing it right now.
Yeah.
You're doing it right now. Because what we do when we speak, you and I are doing this right now, is improvisation at an incredibly high level. Your thought is happening like this, and you are taking words and putting them together. And there's lots of phrases that you might say that you've said before, like the term said before, but they're all happening in a slightly different way as you think, and the words are rolling right off of your tongue.
Wow.
This is improvisation. That's what it is.
So music is conversation. We're just having a conversation.
So the point is, so the question is, should everyone be able to play music and to improvise at a very high level? Yes. Now that doesn't, right.
No, I'm mind blown.
So, which doesn't
this makes sense though.
Yes, exactly. Which doesn't mean, by the way, like you said, you gave me a lovely compliment just now where you said that the things that I say are compelling, right? So you're still going to get people that have a gift, like in language.
Yeah.
You're going to have great orators, like Gandhi or Martin Luther King, or you're going to have great speakers,
right.
And people that are compelling, or people that can, the way that they turn a phrase is fascinating. But that doesn't mean that there's not a crowd of people out there, all that are intelligent enough to take it all in as it comes and be able to turn right around and use that same improvisation ability to discuss what this man is saying. And so, but we're not taught music that way.
I think that this theory and this, I shouldn't even call it a theory.
It's just a different way of thinking about it.
No, this is a mantra. It's almost like a mantra.
Yeah.
And it's almost like this translates into you as an artist and how you perform and how you delegate your crowd. Like this is why you are different. This is why. We just figured it out, everybody. Dave is different because I feel the energy in the room. Like, I think there are so many artists that when I see them perform, I think, man, I can feel the time and the tears and the blood that has been put into this art form. I can see this person performing and imagine what they were like as a child, trying to figure it out, learning how to play that instrument. And like, maybe that's because I'm a medium and I'm very tapped in, and I can feel everybody around me. But you perform and I'm like, man, he makes it look so fucking easy. I feel like I could play the fucking piano. I left your concert. I was like, I'm gonna go home and play the piano.
Dope. That's awesome. That's
because you
that's
make
the best
it
thing
look
you could walk
so
away.
easy. It's like it's just fucking.
It is
just going.
It is, but it is just the same way that if someone were to talk to you and go and say, "I watched you speak," or "I've watched you do this," or "I've watched you have a conversation with people. How can you just do that?"
Yeah.
You would answer them and be like, "Oh, well, you could do it. You could get used to it. It's not as hard as you think it is."
Right.
It doesn't mean that you don't need practice.
Right, but you're a genius at your craft, and that's the irony. Is that no one? I don't think anybody can do what you do, but it's like, but you make it look so easy.
Thank you. Well, you know what? Thank you. It's part of it is because I'm doing. I would say it's the reason is because I'm doing what I want to do.
Yeah.
And it maybe wouldn't look so easy if I was trying to play
not.
music that I don't want to play.
But it's also the combination of you thinking it's a language and you're just like.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is actually 100% that, and I think that I feel like. I'm sure I'm not the first person to say that. I don't ever hear anyone talking exactly this way, but I know, just especially from working with so many jazz musicians and improvisers, I know that's how they. Mm-hmm. I see that's how it's coming out. Mm-hmm. I don't. I guess maybe other people haven't thought about it as is language, because you have to be fascinated by the definition of things and philosophy and truth and like what's really going on, I think, to even bother with trying to define things. But this is something I'm completely obsessed with.
Were you always like this? Were you like this as a child?
Yeah. It's not.
You were a total weirdo, weren't you?
Yeah. I didn't choose that.
Yeah.
But, you have things you don't choose.
Yeah.
Like, so obsession over what's really going on.
I mean, a jazz player and a C.S. Lewis inspired author walk into a bar. It's like you and your brother are both just like these fantastical dreamers.
We're like a couple Muppets when we get together.
So, did you grow up in L.A.?
No. I grew up in Houston, Texas.
Oh.
Yeah. We lived in a rural, in the outskirts of rural Houston. So I got to grow up on like an acre and a half, and our neighbors had cows and chickens, and my brother and I, as little kids, like a neighbor would go out of town, and it'd be our job to like walk across the street and like feed the ducks and the chickens. And I grew up riding bikes and doing all that kind of thing. But then my dad was a professor. He taught at Rice University and at the University of Houston.
What did he teach?
Reading. He teaches teachers how to teach children how to read.
So he teaches language.
Yeah. huge surprise.
This is so funny. Did you butt heads with your dad about language, or did you agree?
No. Well, unfortunately, I've not had much of a opportunity to have an adult relationship with my dad, because he divorced my mom when I was 14, and he left the state. He wrote this book called Metalinguistic Awareness, and in his field, it was something that people knew about. One of the things that he talked about was how we begin to read and comprehend the written language as children. And there's this kind of thing with like phonics is a little odd. None of us as adults read by phonics, right? Yeah. So it's kind of a funny thing. So for example, like we look at like kanji or in the Japanese and Chinese languages, where there's thousands and thousands of characters, right? And they're pictures. And this blows our mind. How do you memorize all the characters? Not realizing that that's actually how we read. We read by picture. Like you don't see, like I don't sound out divinity. I just know what that picture looks like. So we read by picture as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And do you want to know my fun fact?
Yes. Sorry.
See, we're doing it again.
Yeah.
I love this.
What is your fun fact?
Gelsey Kirkland.
Oh, yes.
Who was Mikhail Baryshnikov's partner.
Yes.
Was my dance coach.
No.
Yeah.
In what state? Where did you?
California.
No kidding. In LA here?
No, in San Diego. And you know what's funny is
Wow.
I talk about this a lot so far in the podcast episodes that I've done.
I'm still absorbing that fact.
Yeah, I mean, this is what's so wild. I talk about my dad a lot on social media, and I actually really want him to move to LA and do.
Does he live in San Diego too?
No, he's homeless right now in the middle of America.
Oh. by choice?
Yep.
Okay, well.
Yep, he's living off the land.
As long as he's
happy. He's living in his van.
Okay.
He's not.
Oh.
He's just going through it.
All right. Well, Hi,
Dad.
You got to get through the rough times.
Yeah, he's I don't know. He's figuring it out. My parents are gypsies. They're nomads. They're rock and roll. I mean, they're the reason I'm such a eclectic human being.
Well, who says you need direction?
Oh, nobody. But my dad always told me, we would be at rock bottom. I mean, literally, we were getting kicked out of our housing. I came from a really poor background at times, and then middle class at other times. And we were always on a pendulum, with my upbringing. Like there were times that we had a decent amount of money in the bank. My dad made a couple of good sales. He was a salesman. And I always joked around that I had rich dad, poor dad in one person. And I know what it's like to have a lot of money. And I know what it's like to live out of the car and eat SpaghettiOs and off a hot plate and have no money at all.
The second one I find is better, I think.
It is, because throughout my childhood, no matter how much money we had in the bank, whether it was none or everything, my parents always made sure that they paid on my dance training.
Oh, wow.
Always. Our light bill was getting shut off. And my dad was like, our lights are going to get shut off. Our electricity might get shut off. Might not be able to afford our rent this month, but at least you got dance. So you can never say that your parents didn't want you to do what you were born to do, because at least you got dance.
Wow.
And it came with that pressure of like, okay, I'm gonna be a fucking artist, but at the same time, it's like, fuck, I gotta really make sure that I make them proud because they're paying for this when they should be paying for our means of just survival. What brought you to LA? Did music bring you to LA?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was your big plan? Did you want to be...
Go out to LA, be real good, sign a record deal. That was my business plan.
Did that happen?
Yeah, which was bad and good.
Why was it bad? Why was it good?
Well, it was bad because that's a dumb plan. That's not a plan, really. And it's not really how things work. And I signed a record deal. Well, this is the truth. If that band, I signed a major label deal with Atlantic Records with a band when I was 23, and that's like I did that. That was my foray into the major label business, and it was amazing. We toured with Willie Nelson, toured with Sheryl Crow.
Wow.
And oh man, we did a lot of amazing stuff.
Yeah. I honestly think that now that I've lived in LA and New York, and this is the key, I have done the healing. Because when you are not healed, you will blame the place, you will blame the people, you will blame the things that have happened to you.
Yes,
instead of just doing the work, finding your inner peace. And God, it takes so much to get there. Yes, it does. Oh my God. I thought when I got there, I thought that I was done, and then I wasn't. And then I thought that I got there, and then I wasn't. Like, it takes so long. And then finally you wake up, and it's...
Yeah. And also it is a continuing like process. And that's why ideally, when you hang out, you talk about your teacher. When you hang out with someone that is older, into their 60s and their 70s, and you're hanging out with them, and the presence that is around them that is hard to define is that they have continued to rung up and level up on those experiences. So they become this like immovable, undulating, loving force, you know? And that's hopefully that's the goal for me in life.
Totally. I think you're there. LA was my dream. My whole life.
Dope.
I wanted to be here. See, I'm a medium. I'm spiritual. I'm tapped in. You don't have to tell me a lot. I just know. And I think having that kind of security and that kind of gravitational pull towards the things that I want, the things that I know I'm meant for, I think it's very intimidating to people. And people have vilified me. And I've always had that essence about me ever since I was a child. I know that I'm meant for something great. I know that I am meant to do big things. And I know that it's a destiny and it's not a want. Right. And so when I moved here and I had all of that contention and outside shit that I was dealing with that had nothing to do with the way that I moved in the industry and how I was able to come up, my God, I was killing it. I got everything I ever wanted once I got here within fucking 2 months. I was modeling, I was dancing, I was performing, I was, doing hair. I had full clientele. I was doing celebrity hair. I was traveling all over the country. I had just gotten here and I didn't know a soul. But then I experienced all this trauma. And I was burned by so many people, and I ran with the wolves. And I've talked about this before in a YouTube video on my YouTube channel. But I was so heartbroken by the way that people treated other people out here that it gave me this anger and this resentment that I carried with me for a couple years, leaving LA and then going to New York. And I think that when I got to New York, I was going on this tangent all the time about how people in LA are fake. And people in New York are real. And at least in New York, they may be assholes, but they'll tell you like it is. They'll tell you, I hate you to your face. Whereas in LA, they'll be like, oh, I love you. And then they'll talk shit about you behind your back. And I started doing that whole comparison game between the cities.
Sure.
And I think that's very easy to do when you live by coastal.
Yeah.
And if you ask anybody, where do you prefer, LA or New York? They'll always give you an answer.
Right.
And they'll always say, fuck this place and be obsessed with the other place. Right?
Sure. And
so now that I've done the work, I have noticed that between the two cities, LA and New York, the two places you go to get your dreams, LA, and this is a really cool story. I've told this story to one of my best friends, and she was almost in tears too. You're probably gonna cry again. I was walking down the street. It was DTLA. I was walking down the street, and I noticed a couple street performers, and they were playing their music, and They were looking around to see if anybody was going to give them $1. And this is LA. I give them $1, and then they start walking towards me and they're playing more. And I can tell, okay, they're trying to get more dollars.
Sure.
And that's cool that you're an artist. You're working for your you're making your cash, you're playing your music, you're working for your rent. I get it. I gave them a couple more dollars. Kept walking away. Then they're like going up to everybody else, right? Okay, cool. I get it. You go to New York, you're in the subway station. There's the dude on the saxophone.
Right.
He's got his head down. He's not caring if anybody notices him.
Right.
He's playing for the music.
Sure.
And that was something I noticed between LA and New York. And again, I love both. I've done the healing. I love both. I love LA.
Yeah.
I ride for LA. I'm older now. I'm wiser. I'm grown. I'm healed. I'm a woman now. I'm not a young kid anymore. I'm not a angry middle 20s anymore. I'm secure. And I understand that the city is not the problem. But that is something that I noticed was LA is very much more about, fame. New York is a little bit more about, I don't know, I guess rich, one would say, more than fame.
I think the thing that for me, the one of the defining differences for me between LA and New York is that New York is not just entertainment. It is an entertainment and art mecca, but it is not just that.
Yeah.
There are a shit ton of people there that are not doing anything that has anything to do with entertainment or art.
Right.
But in Los Angeles, that is the business of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So in other words, you and I could go to we could go to a trendy bar in New York.
Yeah.
And run into lots and lots of people that were not in entertainment.
Right.
If you and I go to a trendy bar here in LA.
Everyone's in entertainment.
Right. And so that, to me, what you experience in New York is a little more balance.
Well, that's probably why you got more people that are playing music for the music in New York.
Yeah. And also why that city is not so transient. It is, like there are people that come through it, but like LA has got this massive transience to it with artists, and there's more. There's more in New York. There's more. That's why there's old buildings that are still there. There's old pieces of art that are still there. There's age and wisdom there that stays there. And it's an older city, and it wasn't built on entertainment.
What would you tell a little boy that's trying to be you? A little boy that's learning how to play the piano. Maybe he comes from an abusive household. His dad is telling him that being a piano player is stupid. You can never make it. There's a kid out there like that who's probably going to watch this, and you're going to be his inspiration. What would you tell him?
What would I tell him? Keep playing. That's all I ever did when I was a kid. I just played and played and played. It wasn't until later that I decided to do it for money. I was just playing. It was just a thing where I figured I'd played long enough that it was like, oh, when I play, everybody likes it. I could do this for money. I really love it.
Yeah.
And so because for me, it's cathartic, So I'm like, oh well, now I can experience catharsis on stage, I
love that.
And then also, if that little boy is also like me, like I've always liked to be on stage. I love being on stage.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, follow Dave Yaden on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
There you go.
And I am Divinity with All Eyes on Me podcast. For more episodes like this, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button down below, and we will see you next time. Dave, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.